So, good afternoon, Devoxx. How are you doing? Good. That's kind of dull. Come on, how are you doing? Great. Well, that's kind of good. I mean, this is the last session before the ending keynote. Who's staying for the movie? Who's staying for beers? So between you and beers is a security talk. And you all showed up. Didn't expect that. But we're going to talk about some security stuff today. And well, first of all, welcome. Like it that you're all here. It won't be that dull, but I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I need some help of you. I mean, who likes the word DevSecOps? Nobody. Awesome. I hate it as well. I mean, DevSecOps. We had this thing with Dev and Ops. Tear down walls, put it together in one team, and now we had that cool abbreviation, DevOps. That sounded okay-ish, maybe? And now security is so important, let's put it in the middle. I hate the word. It's like my grandfather who wants to talk slang to his grandchildren, and they're like, no, dude, that doesn't work. But, I mean, that security component in the middle, it is important because, well, you basically do not want to get hacked, right? But in my opinion, that security part in the middle should be scratched out because it should be part of Dev, should be part of Ops, shouldn't be something separate. But first of all, I'm Brian. I'm an engineer and developer advocate for Snyk. And, well, it's a company based in both London, Tel Aviv, and Boston. I do some community work for the Utrecht Jug, which is that funny little juke over there. We have stickers, no worries. I run the Secure Developer, which is a virtual community based on AppSec. So if you want to know more about it afterwards, please enroll. It's free, and you can do that from the comfort of your own chair at home. Same holds for the last one. I'm one of the co-leads for the Virtual Jug. Who of you have heard of the Virtual Jug? That's not enough. Enroll. No, but it's a Java user group, virtual. You can enroll, and we do live sessions, stream it, post it on the internet, so you basically do not have to wear clothes. But we're going to talk about DevSecOps today, right? First of all, we're trying to solve a problem. But what is that problem, actually? Who of you works here for, say, or a government agency, or a bank, or an insurance company? Some hands, please. So quite a lot of you. So you probably know the story I'm going to tell you. 5 years ago, I was working for a bank. 10 years ago, I was working for a government agency. And in both concepts, we deployed 3 times a year. Nowadays, e-commerce platforms, we sometimes deploy 3 times a day instead of 3 times a year. So we try to speed up that delivery because we want to be better, faster, and stronger than our competitors, right? Basically, we want to make sure that the feature is out before the competitor has that, so we have an advantage. But because of that, we are pushing on functions, so functionality. New stuff needs to be out. That project manager is like looking over my shoulder and punching me if I don't get this done by today. But nobody cares about security. It was like, does it work? Ship it. But that's how it works. Nobody cares because as long as you're not hacked, it's not a problem, right? And let's be honest, we tear down these walls between dev and ops, but there's still at the end, there is that black hole we call the security department. And what they do is basically say no. Can I go to production? Nope. But I want to, nope. So we get in some sort of argument. You get into some sort of fight. You'd hate these people. Who's here in security? Thank you. 1. Oh, good luck. No, but what I mean is they're the gatekeepers. They say no for a reason because in the end we want to make sure that our customer data is not compromised because if that is the case, well, we have big headlines in the news and that's fun and stuff, but probably not for your salary. Okay. Fun story, Brian, but how bad is that situation? First question. Who of you heard of a company called Equifax? Okay. Who have heard of you about Equifax like 3 years ago? That's good marketing, right? Everybody knows your name. I would say. No, everybody knows what Equifax was. And for those who didn't, Equifax is a company that used a system which had an older version of Apache Struts 2 in. Basically what happened, that particular version had a vulnerability, people got in, snooped around, and in the end 143 million records were exposed. It's a crediting company, so that's a big deal. But I do not want to focus on the company, but more on the problem of Apache Struts. It's a library. People use libraries all the time, right? I mean, if you look at your application and say this big yellow bowl is your application, how much of that application is your code?
1%.
Probably this. If it's 1 or 2%, but it's tiny, right? I mean, we depend heavily on frameworks, on libraries, on Stack Overflow. Yeah, but we do. I mean, half of the code, more than half of the code, well, maybe 80% of the code that you put into your binary, into production, is not yours. Okay, who of you does code reviews? So that basically means you don't trust your peers, right? You don't blindly say, just push it to production, it's cool. No, everybody can make mistakes, so let's do code reviews. The other half of the people who didn't put their hand up, you all do pair programming. That's good. Let's keep it to that. But you don't trust your peers. But do you trust the code of somebody else? Because you basically put it in and just, hey, it works, ship it. I've got a small serverless example over here. The serverless example in Node has 19 lines of code. It has 2 dependencies. And the first one is AWS SDK. How many dependencies do I have in total? Because you know, one package depends on another package, depending on another package, etc., etc., etc. So, what do you think? Scream. 16. It's Node. It's not that bad. I know the feeling. It's Node. Probably downloads the whole internet twice. But it's 19. It's fair. But okay, how many lines of code do I put into production? 19 lines of code, 19 dependencies. Just think, spread out loud. 500,000, and somebody here says 5,000. Well, it's in between. It's 191,155 lines of code. But then you say, okay, that's Node. Let's go to our own ecosystem because we're good. We're using Spring. 222 lines of serverless code. 5 dependencies, sorting out into 54 dependencies in total. Now the big question, how many lines of code with this Spring serverless example, and this 222 lines of code has some double in it. I mean, we copy paste stuff, just it was demo code. So it's not the best code in the world, but anyway, how many lines of code do I put into production? Because, well, Spring. 460,000, well, a bit shy of 500,000. And people say, but yeah, we don't use half of it. But are you sure? I mean, can we see what kind of reflection APIs are used, etc., etc.? Do you know what's actually been used or not? And the point is, open source usage has exploded over the last decade, and that is good. But we have to remember that open source is just as your own code. It's not insecure, but it's not secure. It's in between. It's written by people. It's maybe there are contributors over here. And everybody makes mistakes, right? But the point is, if somebody finds a mistake in a heavily used framework, I just got a gun and shoot at you. And just maybe I hit you. No, you don't got a library. Maybe I hit you. But if you do, and you're in the crossfire, I'm in. I have a potential of millions of victims if it's a vulnerability in Spring or in an Apache package. Think about it. And I mean, the number of packages over the last few years has enormously grown. Node is the clear winner, and that says something about the quality. Let's be honest. If you want something to be done in Node, it's more of a guessing game. We got 1,200 packages doing this, so let's pick this one. But even in Java, if we look at Maven Central, the increasement between January 2018 and 2019 is over 100,000 packages growth. So, and it grows massively. But if we look at the number of vulnerabilities that are disclosed every year, unfortunately, we in the Java ecosystem are the clear winner. And if we look closely to these things, to these dependencies, we see that it's not for Maven and NPM. Let's take these two. It's not the top level dependencies that is the problem, but it's the transitive dependencies, the indirect dependencies. Because packages are using packages, are using packages. And deep down below, there can be some package that is vulnerable. But do you know? Probably not. Right? We can say, yeah, but for Python or for PHP, well, these ecosystems are not that big, honestly. It's not to make fun of them. Well, it's more easy to make fun of PHP, of course, but it is still, these are smaller ecosystems. NPM and Java are very large ecosystems, so they are representable. And if we ask open source maintainers, are you actually confident in your own security knowledge? 63% says, kinda. And do you trust kinda? But you don't trust your own peers, right? Because, hey, let's review your stuff. But then get to the big question, like, what do we need to do? Who is responsible for security? There was a big report. All these slides are from a big report we call the State of Open Source Security. And 81% that says developers have their own responsibility for security. It's most of the time it's shared responsibility between operations and developers and security teams or whatever, but we need to take our fair share. Well, we can go on and on and on about how do you find these vulnerabilities. 27% said I probably won't. But I think this one is more important. Once a vulnerability is discovered, in general, well, maintainers, open source maintainers want to react quickly. They want their sources to be used. How many days in general will it take to fix this? What do you think? 2, 3, 6, 5. In general, it's 16, which fair amount. It depends. There are edge cases on one side and edge cases on the other side. But in general, 16 days, which is fair. I mean, it depends how many people are using that and how many people are maintaining this. But say we have a package who works with a legacy application in production. Who of you, keep your hand up, who of you doesn't dare to touch that application because it works and so many people are depending on it? A lot, right? But say a vulnerability is out there. How long does it take for a package out in the open and there is a vulnerability in it, but we simply don't know? How long does it take to be discovered and disclosed? What do you think, in general? Yeah? The point, 2.5 years. The point is, if you have something in production and you don't dare to touch it, and it's outside facing, you probably have an issue. Who uses Docker? Who likes Docker? Well, still a lot of people. Who uses Docker and builds their images on top of the base images that you get from Docker Hub? We took the top 10 Docker images from Docker Hub in March. And we looked at the vulnerabilities per Docker image. Node had 567 vulnerabilities for free. So you download that package, you build your Node stuff on top of it, and you have 500 vulnerabilities out of the open. Just because you can. The point is, if you're using these systems, and this one was just the latest image, so not even a particular tag or something, no, the latest image, the biggest one. So normally you can choose which version you want to use, and also which operating system it needs to build on. The latest one in March was built on an older Debian Jessie version, and all these 567 vulnerabilities were not due to Node, but to Debian Jessie. So that means you also need to take care of operating system problems. And a hack is not only because there's a problem in the application, it's most of the time in multiple things. Well, then we say all these questions like, when do you scan your Docker containers for operating system vulnerabilities? 50% say we don't, etc., etc. But this talk was called life hacking, right? So because it's fun to make, well, it's easy to make fun of Node, let's start with that. I will do some Java as well, but nowadays we are polyglot programmers. We need to do everything right. So I will start with a small application. Yes, I built this myself, and you see I'm a great designer. This is a to-do app. And a to-do app like, I can do something like buy flowers because, well, my wife expects me to be home tonight and I will not be. So I probably need to make up. So I can do these to-dos. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not about what the application can do. We also have this awesome about page. Right? Well, cool. So I know this about page is served by the ST library, the static library in NPM, in Node. And I know a particular version that has path traversal. Who knows what path traversal is? Who doesn't know what path traversal is? That's a better question. There's no problem. Path traversal is that we're trying to break out of the sandbox we're in. So in this case, we're in the public, so localhost, public, whatever. If I go over here, you will see the address, localhost 3001 public about. And I want to get out of that and maybe get to the root and see what I can do. So say we want to hack this. How do I start? Any ideas? Scream, shout, help me. Now, the first thing you need to do is put on a hoodie, put your hood on, because there is no proper hacker without a hood, if I must believe the movies, right? The second thing you need to do is go to your terminal, because no proper hacker will do it from his browser, trust me. This doesn't look cool, come on. This is like, okay, I've got a black screen with green letters on it. This is how it's supposed to be, right? So, say for instance, we curl this, and I'm way too lazy to type, so let me just copy paste this one. Okay, so I can get the HTML. Perfect. So I want to do path traversal. What's the first thing we normally would do? Double dot. I like that one. So I try like this, like dot slash, like this, right? Because if I'm in the root eventually and I do dot slash in the root, I will end up in the root. So cool. Let me see what happens. What is this? Ah, damn, this is just my landing page. So this doesn't work. And that is because the ST library is a real library. And it scans for the dot slash. It recognizes that. The only problem is it does blacklisting. So it blacklists the dot slash. So let's try to be a bit more creative. I hear a few things, but the first thing that people actually said, I heard something like escaping. What we do is like something as, no, trust me, this doesn't work. Look now. But I heard something with some strange numbers. What do you think about URL encoding? I hear somebody here in the crowd says %2 what? %2. Sir, are you a developer or a hacker? I mean, the first time somebody asked me what is the URL encoding for a dot, and if somebody says %2e, I don't trust him anymore. Look out for this gentleman here in the front. But it is %2e in this case. And I did this thing many times before, so I know it's %2e. I'm not a hacker. I can only hack this one. No worries. So I do something like this, right? Let me just put it on top and say, okay, normally I can select this, hopefully, if my mouse is working. Shut up, don't do it, work with me. Well, anyway, if I do this, you see I have a file system. And I can do this multiple times, because normally I can select it like this, yes. And if I do it like this, I get the root of my system, my local host. So what I can do is, if I do it like this and I do like, you see, I can get in. Awesome. And then there's always that smart ass that says, yeah, but you shouldn't run your applications as root. That's true. But just look at your own system and your Docker files and ask yourself that again tomorrow. Right? No, but the point is, this is not a real serious hack. We can read. Fine, you can read. I have nothing to hide. But the point is, this is the starting point, because now we can just snoop around, look what we can do more. I mean, if I have something like this, And I can go to the... Now I see what all your dependencies are. I've got the package.json in the npm. So I can snoop around and I can look and I can see, for instance, that we have the ms package 071. Well, that's not there by accident, of course. That's a vulnerable package. The point is, reading is not a severe vulnerability, but it's a starting point to get you further and further and further, because there will be some time that maybe you can snoop around and can read the passwords or property files or whatever like that. But I said the ms package because that has a problem as well. I want to ask you something else. Who likes regular expressions? Who likes reading and debugging other people's regular expressions? There are some people in the back, hopefully with a lot of beer in that case. But I saw a cartoon yesterday and was like, how to write regular expressions. Take your cat, put him on your keyboard, we'll walk around and you probably have a working regular expression. If not, try again. But say, for instance, we have a regular expression like this. This is a very silly one. I mean, if this is my regular expression and I want to match it to a string like this, this will obviously match, right? But how does it match? Does it use the star? Does it use the plus? Does it use the plus to halfway and then the star? Basically, we don't know because we don't know the implementation of that engine. What we do know from a regular expression is that if it doesn't match and the input is very, very long, it goes into a backtracking mode. And it basically tries all the possibilities that are valid for that regular expression and connects that or tries to compare that to that string. That means if I just feed it a regular expression with a lot of, that needs a lot of time, and it goes into the backtracking mode, I occupy that single thread. And in how many threads does a Node application work? There can only be one. We call this a regular expression denial of service, RDoS. Because what I basically do, I just occupy the thread with so many computation power, or I just occupy it, that other requests cannot come in. And can you imagine what happens if you're, for instance, well, we are in Holland, or we are in Belgium, and Belgium also works with this company called bol.com, and it's Black Friday, and say I'm Amazon, and I know they're on NPM, and I try this regular expression, they're out for the day, and everybody comes to me and buys my stuff, right? Let me just do that. No, I won't hack anybody. I won't hack my system because that's safe. Non-disclosure stuff, and you know how it works, right? So let me clear that one. And I first of all will show you just a example that how we are gonna do this. We're gonna use curl, of course, but we're gonna use HTTP, which is a command line HTTP tool to fill in this form. So if I'm using this, you will see I will say call mom in 20 minutes, and I will put it into a local host, etc. So that comes back. If I look at my, it says call mom in 20M. So it does something with a number and the word minutes. It matches that in some way. Okay, cool. But let's do this one. I'll copy it. And I will basically say buy milk in, and I will put a string of 60,000 fives, and we'll try to match it to minutes. Oh, that works. It took a bit longer, but it works. And if you look at it over here, it will say buy milk in infinity days. Well, by then it's sour, but fair enough. Anyhow, it works because it matches. It doesn't go into that backtracking stuff. So how can we do that? Any ideas? The answer is simple. Always simple if you know it, right? That's good. The point is just make sure that doesn't match. So if I do this, and instead of that minutes, let's make it minutes, because that sounds cool. And you see it hangs. And if I go to my system quick enough, and it doesn't do anything until we looked at every possibility in that thread or in that regular expression. It frees up the the resources, and my other stuff can go on. So that basically means I can, if I just add another 0 to it, we can sit here all day. If I add another 0 to it, we can spend the weekend here. So if you like that, I can do that, but probably not, right? No, but the point is, who of you works on the cloud? Well, if you use the cloud, the power of the cloud, you probably use some elastic scaling stuff, right? So if that stuff is, if your instance is occupied, then you just pop up another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. That's not a denial of service, that is a denial of pocket money. So, yes, that was Node. That was fun, right? But now let's get into Java. I have here a application, and just for, I will zoom a bit in, and you'll see that this runs on Heroku. This runs in the cloud. So I hopefully pray to the demo gods that it will start up. It always takes some startup time, heat up time. But what I want to do is, it has the famous Apache Struts problem in it, and I will show that one to you. Let's sign up, and I will use my name and email address, and I will use a password 123456 because I work in a security company, and this is very secure. Sign up, works perfectly. So what I can do is, well, let's go to the about page over here, and silly as we are, we put in that it uses Struts 2.3. Ooh, that's convenient. So, struts. The problem with Apache Struts is that we can insert headers. Well, basically what we can do, we can insert stuff into the content type. And this is the content type I want to give. Content type. Who recognizes this content type? Nobody, right? Because it's an illegal content type. So what happens is you go into an exceptional flow. But Struts has, well, in Struts you can utilize OGNL, the expression language, the object graph navigation language, if I'm not mistaken. What you can do with that expression language, you can alter variables at runtime, you can even make new instances. And it was used to actually create better error messages. That's why it was there somewhere in the exceptional flow. And somebody without a life, I think, found out that with this header we can do that. Because what we do is we basically access the process builder. And we feed it the bin bash with a command. And by doing this, I can basically execute any Linux command on that system. So, let's do that. Let's look it up like struts exploits.sh. Okay, let me just get the environment variables just to be simple. So what I do over here, and this is localhost. Now let's do it on a cloud instance because that's more fun. So I will just go to heroku.com or my instance. I will take this one away. And what I basically do is I use that header that I just showed you and I substitute command for env. But env is a command and I can use any command I want. By doing this, I have the environment variables of my Heroku instance. Like, what are Java options? What is my Java home? Oh, this is funny. The Java home is /app/.jdk. Remember that one. But now it doesn't work only on my local machine, but also on a cloud instance. So that means that if I can do the env, I can do an ls, I can do basically anything I want. Maybe I'm that smart I can overwrite the ls today and tomorrow with something nasty. The day after I just call ls and lucky you to find out what happened. Nobody gets it anymore, even if you have proper logging. So this is a severe vulnerability. And this is how Equifax got hacked, basically. Because they could snoop in. And they were looking around for months. And months and months. And after that, they found out that the stuff was there, exposed it, and Equifax didn't know at that point that they had a vulnerable app. They just had the wrong version in their system. But this one, right? Let's do something with that. So what we can do with this thing as well is if I can create it to do. So I can say eat Let's put it somewhere in 9070, and I'm probably hungry because, well, that's been a while. So make it high. And what does it do? You see that the pi is translated into an ASCII representation. And I know for a fact that every title is going into the native to ASCII function, which is part of the JDK. Okay. This application can also upload files, zip files. Why? I don't know, because we can. But say I have a zip file like this. Yes. You see what's happening here? I have two files in this zip file. The first one is the good.txt. The second one has hey /app/.jdk/bin/native to ASCII. So what I'm trying to do with this one, if it unpacks that zip file, I hope that it doesn't look at the path, but basically takes it and executes it. Because if you naively just look at the path, look at the file name, connect them together and execute, this might work. Let's try. So I go into here. I have this this thing, and it is in. No, it's not in downloads. It's in demo. Yes, here I got it. Zip. I open it. I upload it, and you see that in my public folder, I expect where the stuff needs to be. I see that good.txt is there, which is cool. But the other one is not there. So that means either it swallowed an exception and didn't notify me, or it executed. Let's find out. What I did, basically, that native to ASCII file, I can show you if you want to, but it only says echo, I got you. So on my Heroku instance, I overridden something in the JDK because I'm using a unzip library that is unsafe because it doesn't look at the path. It doesn't look at the canonical path, but it simply takes it and executes it. This was, of course, this one. These vulnerabilities were fixed already, but I didn't update. So the problem is, how much do we trust our libraries? And this is just part of it. This is just to make fun of it. But it can happen, and it happened. Let's do another one, because we can. I have a Spring application over here. And this Spring application is simply a grocery list. You see, beans for 50 cents, milk for $1.09, bread for $1.50, etc., etc., etc. The items are not that interesting as well. It's just a string and a cost with an ID and some getters and setters. This is the interesting part, because we are using the CRUD repository by implementing Spring Data REST, Spring Data, sorry. So we now do not have to take care of our CRUD functionality anymore. It gives it away for free. I just have to use the naming conventions, and I have my CRUD repos, which is convenient because we do not want to focus on all these plumbing. We want to focus on business value, because that will make your company better, faster, and stronger, right? So this is cool. And then we have this annotation. Because I use Spring Data REST, I can make my CRUD repo, I can transform it basically into a REST repo, or a REST endpoint, which is convenient because, well, prototyping will be lots and lots faster. But you all know what happens with a prototype, right? Well, it was just a prototype, but it works. Ship it. So let's pray to the demo gods and make sure that this one runs. Hopefully it does. Yada, 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 yada. Yes, startup. Cool, works. So we go to localhost, I think it's on 8080. And I come into a hell browser. The hell browser is just one of the dependencies I have, but just to show you what happens. So I can do things like this. If I just ask the items endpoint, I will get all the items in my shopping list. If I say items, well, /1, I will get the first item, etc., etc. Or I can use, for instance, the thing that's find by name. And if my name is beer, then it will only return me beer. And that's pretty neat, because now I can build on my other microservice function, whatever small thing is hip and happening now. And I can just use this. But there's always a but. Let's go into this one. I can also supply it a JSON body. If I do that with a patch result or with a patch request, and I use this. And what I do is, well, it's basically similar to the Apache Struts one, because Spring has an expression language of their own, SPEL, Spring Expression Language. And what we do, again, we utilize that to create new objects. And what we do with that object is, well, we executed a command because we get the runtime. And by binding it to an input stream, connect that input stream to an output stream, I will get the result back if I use this header. So let's get the environment variables again, because that's the easy one again. Exploit this one. So I'm using this curl example. And what it does, it simply uses a curl patch instead of a post. It gives the content type JSON with a patch, and it supplies it this body. And you see which endpoint it uses. The one that was already there for getting my first item on my shopping list. I can do the second item or the third item, doesn't matter. Because by doing this, I will have the environment variables of my, again, local machine. And again, I can do whatever I want, because I can create every command that is available over there. So even nobody's using struts anymore, there are still some similar problems in other things, and even in things like Spring. Of course, they are already solved. But how should you act on that? Well, there is a solution, of course. There's always a solution, but the solution is not simple. The solution is 3 ways. You have to take care of culture, process, and of course you need tooling. I think the most important part is team culture, because, well, we work with a lot of people, a lot of different people. Developers, we want to create new stuff. We want to create cool things. We're builders, right? We're cool. Can we build it? Yes, we can. And then you have the security people. And the security people, they care about is that we do not get breached. So if you do not deploy, then you will probably not get breached, because, well, we tested that. Operations people, they care about if they got called at 3 a.m. and they need to do stuff, that they just put it off, put it on, works again, I can go back to sleep. Is it manageable? And what do managers take care of? What do they think? What is their incentive? Money, of course. But that's okay, because if there's no money, if there's no value, you will not get paid. But if you look at that security point and go back to the very first slide, that was in the end, right? But if we, in our development process, can make sure that we take a little bit of care on secure coding and, for instance, scanning your dependencies, that would help a lot, that the security people might not say no directly the first time, because I already took care of a few things. So there's process needed. But if I'm your manager and I would say you need to pen test every single thing that you do and that goes to production, that doesn't work. It might work if you got breached and that works for 2 weeks, and after that, well, we just go back to our normal routines because we need to deliver. So if we can not add new process but adapt the process we have so that, well, let's say it this way, that it's not so intrusive. So that it's just easy, because that if we still can build, but if we can automate things, or if you just by push of a button it is checked, or, well, make it easy, and then you can still do what you want to do, which is building, and with just a little bit of overhead, or maybe not even overhead. If I make it so easy, you might use it, right? Because if I ask somebody like, do you want to change, or do we want change? Everybody says yes. Do you want to change? Yeah, no. And then, of course, the last one, there's tooling. You need to have tooling in place. And that tooling is all sorts of tooling. Scanning your dependencies is one, because that's what we saw now. But you also need to scan that little bit of purple, what we had in that slide. That's your code. You need to do code reviews. But not only code reviews like, oh, no, you have to use a string builder instead of a string buffer. Or, no, you shouldn't be using this or that because, well, no, the bracket needs to be on the next line. That's not code reviews. That is just bashing. But if we look at code reviews, we do take care of things like, is it portable? Is it fast? Is it maintainable? And you should also take care of, is it secure in some way? Some things are easy to spot. Some things might be harder. That's where your tooling comes in. So what we say you should do is make sure that it is everywhere in your pipeline. And what do I mean by that? It's not your CI pipeline, because probably you have a CI build pipeline, doesn't matter which one you use, and you have maybe you have some security checks in there. That's all cool, you need that. But what if you could also check on your local machine? So that's what we say, try to start on the left. Your local machine, say I want to scan there, which is pretty easy. I mean, if for instance, I have a plugin like this and it scans and it sees like, oh, you have so many vulnerabilities like this. And for instance, oh, this is a denial of service thing in Apache Struts. It's actually not Apache Struts, but comments file. And what if, for instance, we could say, maybe you should upgrade instead of from 2.3.20 to 2.3.30. That will be helpful. Not only pointing out it's wrong. Then you're like, yeah, fun, but how do I solve it? This is actionable advice. So you should choose your tooling right. And this is the local machine. But also you can do this, for instance, connect your Git repo to it. If we can connect our Git repo to this and scan it automatically, then, well, we got alerted every time, for instance, a new pull request comes in. If I have something like this and I can say, well, fix this vulnerability, and it creates, in this case, a pull request that automatically updates the version, or I can even automate it that does that completely automatic, but that's up to your flow. So you have to choose your tools in the right way. What fits your process? And say, well, we do pull request, we do code review, so you probably do pull request. Why not scan every single pull request for new stuff that comes in? So we set a baseline, we're comfortable with these vulnerabilities, and maybe we just do not want to get worse, right? So every single pull request is scanned. And if somebody wants to bring in new, it will break the build. And then you have your CI pipeline. Before you go to production, you need to scan your whole shebang before it goes into production. Sure, I get that. And you should be doing that. But if you only do it there, you're probably too late, or it will cost you 3 weeks of rework because, well, we need to upgrade Spring Boot, and it's breaking change, so my APIs break, so everything needs to be redone. And that makes me angry, and that makes me uncomfortable, and then I cry myself to sleep. But you're not done when you're at that point. You go to production, and then it's fine, right? It's there, it's out there. Next one. That's what we do. But why not take a snapshot of that state in time and scan it on a daily basis? Because we already saw that it can take up to 2.5 years for a vulnerability to get disclosed. So simply doing that and getting automatically alert by Slack, email, would save you the time by that you do not have to do that manually, but make sure you have that stuff in place in the right step. So you're not done when you're going into production. You need to be scanning there as well. And that holds for your dependencies because, well, that's one, but it also holds for your own code. Maybe not when you're in production, but you need to design to be. You need to be aware that if you design something now, it might not work for the rest of until the end of days. Because do you still trust password encryption, which is done by MD5? Not, right? 10 years ago, that was good. Now not. So what we say is shift security left. That's left for you. Do it as easy, as early as possible. Try to take it into your workflow from your local machine, because if I see that from my local machine, I put in new vulnerabilities into my Git repo, well, I can prevent it at that point. Well, if it's in my Git repo, it might be there at a point in time where it was not vulnerable, but now it is. And same holds for CI and production. I want to keep it at that. I have 5 minutes left. If you want to see more about that clean purple dot, which is NPM or Java or whatever, we wrote together with experts in the field some security cheat sheets on how to look at your own code. Maybe this is helpful. I wrote the JavaOne just not too long ago together with Jim Manico, Java champion and owner of Manico Security, which he is kind of a big shot. But maybe it helps. My name is Brian. I work for Snyk. Well, as I said, I'm part of the secure developer, so if you want to know more about best practices which are related to security, feel free to join us and join the webinars, because it's free. Are there any questions? If not, I want to thank you for your attention. Go grab a beer, go see the movie, and come back tomorrow, because there are good talks tomorrow. Trust me. Thank you.